The Transformation, The Case of the Neturei Carta. By I. Domb. Published 1958. Narrated by Judah Speaks. Chapter 1. Throughout history, the lives and minds of the people of Israel have been disturbed by occasional outbreaks of idolatry and heresy. The struggle to preserve Jewish religious tradition in all its essential purity has been intense and continuous. The partial success of these efforts to invade the stronghold of our faith can be attributed largely to the confusion under cover of which they have been launched. For higher reasons and also as a result of the perplexity created by sin, there is an appearance of an element of truth that has crept into the most erroneous doctrines so that they are endowed with the power of attracting and ensnaring the unwary. In our time, the confusion spread even among the devout by the establishment of the Zionist state is perhaps more widespread than at any other time in Jewish history, and this effort to promote a greater clarity of thought on the subject, among those who still profess devotion to Jewish religion has been conceived, as a response to the challenge of our time. From the religious point of view, the attitude to the state of Israel does not depend on its success or failure in the field of economics or politics but on its ideals and philosophy and on the extent to which these are in agreement or in conflict with those of Judaism. Now the state was founded as a result of the efforts of the Zionist movement to solve the problem of Jewish suffering. All the miseries experienced by Jews have been attributed by Zionist theoreticians to the fact that they were in Galut and therefore deprived of the means of defense available to other nations. Once this defect was remedied by the achievement of statehood, the whole problem was automatically solved, and the causes of Jewish suffering were eliminated. Only the possession of its own territory, it is argued, can safeguard the existence of a people. As their objective has now been gained, the future of the Jewish problem will be progressively solved and need cause no further anxiety. No one can, or should deny, that our Galut with all its miseries exists, nor that we should endeavor to solve this problem and avert all its consequences. However, the methods advocated by Judaism as leading to the redemption of our people, and also the nature of the redemption itself, are completely and diametrically opposed to those preached by Zionism. The Jewish attitude is not merely the outcome of the fact that the Zionists are not observant Jews or that the leadership of the state is in the hands of irreligious people. It is based on the fact that the Zionist ideology as a whole is a complete negation of the fundamental tenets of our faith. The real point at issue is, are we a people whose life is regulated by a supernatural divine order, whose earthly and bodily existence is not dependent on normal political, economic, and material successes or failures? A people whose raison d'etre is wholly bound up with undefinable supernatural ways, with the Torah and its commandments which cannot be fully comprehended by earthly, human reason? Or are we a people which exists, rises, and falls, in consequence of the very same factors, which cause all other nations to rise and fall, a nation like any other nation? Zionism is based on this very assumption that we are indeed a nation like any other but plagued with the curse of statelessness, for which political Zionism has found a solution. This solution consists of the application of the same methods as other peoples would adopt in similar circumstances, namely, the organization of all material sources of wealth and strength, the dissemination of propaganda, the siege of public opinion, and the use of all worldly means with which to further its aim, to gain a place among the nations of the world. According to them, nothing more is required by this Jewish nation than by any other, and the greatest mistake committed in the past lies in the fact that Jews have not striven for statehood and have consequently not reached the goal attained by other nations. In brief, Zionism as a movement is the incarnation of the idea that there is essentially no difference between the nature and aims of the Jewish people and those of other peoples. It is indeed a remarkable phenomenon that it has needed the vast Zionist propaganda effort to bring home to us Jews the desire to possess a territory and the idea of national glory which comes naturally to any other nation. It has taken all the vast literary and rhetorical campaigns of half a century to inject such simple ideas into the minds of our people. We are surely not the least intelligent of the nations, and our circumstances throughout the 2,000 years of Galut have surely not been such as to make us content with our lot and blind to so obvious a solution. Yet the Zionist panacea, when it was first put on the market, appeared completely alien to Jews, whose life was dominated by the Torah and whose mentality was impregnated with emunah. At the time of the birth of the Zionist ideology, we were rendered immune from its infection by the emunah infused in our souls. We were then nursed in the cradle of the Torah. From our tenderest youth until the end of our days, the Beth Hamidrash was the only place where we thought fit to spend our leisure. In every Jewish town and village, the Kol Torah was heard like a clarion call, and the surroundings reverberated with its echoes. In the morning, one minyan following the other. After prayers, everyone attended his shiur or recited his Tehillim. The evening was devoted to the Gemara, Mishnayot and Ayin Yaakov. The holiness of the Sabbath and Yom Tov was so intense that it could be felt and sensed, as soon as they were about to begin, and everyone lived with the same aim, of penetrating deeper and further into the treasures of holiness. It was hardly surprising then that Zionist philosophy, on its first appearance, struck the bulk of the devout Jewish masses as being unacceptable and even repulsive. A complete change of outlook was needed for conversion to Zionism, and it could therefore be embraced only by the few who had discarded holiness and adopted attitudes at variance with those of the mainstream of Jewry. Our Jewishness is not just a doctrine or a conviction, which can be replaced by other teachings, but part of our being inherited and deeply rooted in our very souls. Holiness and nearness to God have been bestowed on us as a birthright from the days of Abraham Avinu, as it is written, "For the portion of the Eternal is his people, Jacob is a lot of his inheritance." The complete observance of the Torah develops and intensifies this essence of our being, which was instilled in us by the G.D. of Israel. The maintenance of this lofty spiritual status, however, calls for persistent vigilance. Owing to the low state into which the world has lapsed and the existence of choice between good and evil, there is always a possibility of the Jew divesting himself of this holiness and being thrown into the chaos of the confusion of darkness. The way was prepared for Zionism by the Reform movement or the so-called Haskalah with its teaching that the laws governing the world could all be understood by human reason. The influence of the Haskalah began to undermine the pillars of Judaism, and once the infection had spread to the Jewish masses, Zionism, the faithful offspring and disciple of the Haskalah reform, arose to continue the work of its father and to apply its teachings to the Jewish people. The Haskalah and Zionism were mutually dependent in the process. The former breached the wall of the citadel of the faith, and the latter, disguised in an imitation of Jewish garb, entered through the breaches in order to carry on the work of destroying the main structure.